Today we're diving into the history of the Norfolk 17.
Yeah, those 17 students who integrated schools in Norfolk,
And
Virginia,
back in 1959.
right in the heart of the civil rights movement.
It's a story of incredible courage, but
A
also,
lot of resistance and hardship.
and it reveals a lot about the strategies used to fight desegregation.
Both for and against, yeah.
So, to set the stage, 1954 we have Brown v. Board of Education
Right, the landmark Supreme Court case.
declaring segregation in public schools unconstitutional.
But that didn't mean it ended overnight.
No, not at all.
Many states, especially in the South, they resisted.
And Virginia
A
was
hotbed of resistance.
really at the forefront of this.
This movement called massive resistance.
Can you tell us more about that? Like, what exactly was massive resistance?
Well, it was a strategy
Okay.
really orchestrated by Senator Harry F. Byrd Sr.
Okay.
to try to unite white Virginians against integration.
So it was more than just like individual prejudice.
Right. It was a deliberate campaign
Wow.
involving legislation, court challenges, even threats of school closures.
So they were willing to like completely disrupt the education system
Absolutely. They were
to prevent integration.
they saw it as a threat to their way of life.
Wow. And one of the key figures in this was Governor James Lindsay Almond Jr.
Right. He was a staunch segregationist.
And he had the power to actually close schools.
Yes, under the Stanley Plan
Which was a law passed by the Virginia legislature
in 1956.
that allowed him to shut down any school-facing integration.
That's right. Even if just one black student tried to
The
enroll.
entire school could be shut down.
Exactly. It was a drastic measure.
It's incredible they were willing to.
Punish everyone
Yeah.
to prevent integration.
So imagine being a teenager,
Yeah.
knowing that your actions could lead to the closure of your school.
The weight of that responsibility
Yeah.
must have been immense.
And that's exactly what the Norfolk 17 faced.
17 black students who volunteered to integrate.
6 previously all-white schools.
3 junior highs and 3 high schools.
So let's dive into their stories, starting with the schools themselves. Like, what were these schools like? Who were these 17 students?
Well, we're talking about, significant student populations.
Okay.
Which made integration even more challenging.
Right.
And the students themselves, they were
Mm.
a diverse group, ranging in age
Okay.
from 12 to 19.
Wow. So really young, some of them.
Yeah, just kids.
And each with their own unique story and background.
Right, and we'll get into those individual stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
But first, let's set the scene.
Okay.
At one of these schools, Northside Junior High,
Okay.
where 12-year-old Geraldine Talley
12 years old.
became the only black student
Wow.
among over 1,400 white students.
I mean, that's hard to even fathom.
Yeah, the isolation must have been overwhelming.
Did she ever talk about how that impacted her?
You know, she did talk about the loneliness,
Okay.
the feeling of being constantly watched, judged.
And she did find some solace in a supportive art teacher.
Right, someone who saw her as an individual,
Yeah.
not just, the black student.
It's amazing how just one person can make such a difference.
Absolutely.
And then there's Louis Cousins,
Who attended Maury High School.
another large school.
Yeah, over 2,000 students.
And he was also the only black student there.
Right, he was known as the professor
Hmm.
because of his intellect.
And he also faced intense isolation.
Yeah, there's this haunting photograph of him sitting alone in a crowded auditorium.
Really captures that sense of alienation.
It's a powerful image.
It is.
And it wasn't just isolation.
No.
Louis also endured racial slurs and even had a cross burned on his lawn.
It's just horrific.
A truly terrifying act of intimidation.
And it wasn't just the students who were targeted.
Right, their family suffered as well.
Lavera Forbes, who went to Norview Junior High,
She was actually stabbed in the back.
and that attack was kept secret for years.
Yeah, to protect the desegregation efforts.
So people were really living in fear,
Absolutely.
afraid to speak out.
The consequences could be severe.
And these are just 3 of the schools.
Right,
We've got 3 more to go.
and more stories to uncover.
So let's move on to Blair Junior High,
Okay,
where we have Lolita Portis and Reginald Young.
both just 12 years old
Incredible.
when they integrated that school,
And then there's Granby High.
where Betty Jean Reed was the only black student.
And unfortunately, we don't know much about her experience.
Yeah, she passed away in 1980
Okay.
before she could really share her story.
That's such a loss.
It is. Every story matters.
Absolutely.
And then finally we have Norview High School,
Okay.
where 7 students integrated.
Wow, 7. That's the most of any school.
It was.
Were there any particular challenges they faced at Northview High?
Well, isolation was a common theme.
Oh.
Patricia Turner, one of the students,
Okay.
she talked about how Some teachers would actually wear gloves
Glove.
to handle her papers.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
It was
What kind of message does that send?
a message of fear, of disgust,
Yeah.
of seeing her as somehow less than human.
It's heartbreaking.
It is, but Patricia, she persevered.
Hmm.
She excelled academically, graduated 5th in her class.
Amazing she didn't let them break her spirit.
Not at all.
And you mentioned Andrew Heidelberg also attended Northview High.
Yeah, he loved sports,
Okay.
but was targeted by white students,
Hmm.
threatened with a bat.
Oh my gosh.
The principal had to protect him from an angry mob.
It's hard to believe this was happening in
It
America.
was a dark time.
But Andrew, he went on to become a football star.
He didn't let hate define him. He
No.
rose above it.
And there were other students at Northview High as well.
Yes, Freddie Gonsalant.
Okay.
He actually petitioned the school to go back to the all-black Booker T. Washington High School.
After just one semester?
The pressure was too much for him.
Wow, I can only imagine.
And then there's Dolores Johnson Brown.
Okay.
She was denied the chance to take PE classes
Why?
because they were afraid she would dirty the showers.
Oh, come on. That's ridiculous.
It was pure racism.
And Johnny Rouse?
She had white friends buy her tickets for school events.
Because she wasn't allowed to.
Yeah, they wouldn't sell them to her.
It's mind-boggling.
And then there's Olivia Driver-Lindsay.
Okay.
She had a really interesting observation.
Hmm.
She said institutions like Old Dominion University
Okay.
and Norfolk General Hospital,
Hmm.
they likely wouldn't exist
Okay.
if not for the fight for desegregation.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, she was talking about how urban development was used to maintain segregation.
Yeah.
They intentionally kept neighborhoods segregated,
Right.
which then led to segregated schools.
So the fight against school segregation.
Had this ripple effect.
Yeah.
It helped dismantle other forms of segregation.
Wow, it was all connected.
It was.
And then we have Carol Wellington and Patricia Godbolt.
The last two students who integrated Northview High.
Okay.
Patricia's story is particularly harrowing.
Hmm.
Threats, taunts, denied entrance into the National Honor Society,
Wow.
even a cross burning at her door.
It's unbelievable how much hate they faced.
It's a reminder of what they were up against.
Yeah, and their courage in the face of that.
It's inspiring.
It is, and it's important to remember these stories,
Absolutely.
to honor their legacy.
And to learn from their experiences.
Because the fight for equality is far from over.
It's a fight that continues today.
And we can draw strength from their example.
Absolutely.
They showed us that change is possible.
Even in the face of overwhelming adversity.
And that's a message we need to hear today.
Now more than ever.
Their stories are so powerful, and they really highlight the systemic nature of racism and segregation.
Yeah, it wasn't just about individual attitudes.
Yeah.
It was about laws and policies designed to keep black people separate and unequal.
And to challenge that, they needed more than just courage.
They needed legal action.
And that's where the NAACP comes in.
Yeah, they played a crucial role in fighting segregation in the courts.
So can you walk us through some of those legal battles? Like, how did they directly impact the Norfolk 17?
Well, in 1958, the Virginia legislature passed a bunch of laws
Okay.
aimed at preventing integration.
Like what?
Well, one of them was the Stanley Plan.
Right, which we talked about earlier.
Yeah, the one that allowed the governor to close schools facing integration.
And that's exactly what happened in Norfolk.
Yep, those schools were shut down.
It's incredible. They would rather shut down schools.
Then integrate.
Yeah.
They were that determined to maintain segregation.
But the NAACP, they didn't just sit back,
No, they challenged those school closures in court.
arguing that they were unconstitutional.
Right, and in January of '59,
Okay.
just a few weeks before the Norfolk 17 were supposed to start school, both the Virginia Supreme Court and the Federal District Court,
Wow.
they ruled those closures unconstitutional.
So those legal challenges
They paved the way for the Norfolk 17.
to finally integrate.
Yeah, it was a major victory.
It really shows the power of the legal system.
To fight for social justice.
But even after those legal victories,
The fight wasn't over.
no, they still face so much resistance.
Yeah, desegregation was a long and difficult process.
So those legal battles.
They were essential,
Yeah,
but they didn't erase racism overnight.
right. Changing hearts and minds.
That's a much longer process.
the process that continues today.
Unfortunately, yes.
So let's talk about the impact
Okay.
of the Norfolk 17.
Their actions had a ripple effect
Yeah.
that went far beyond Norfolk.
In what way?
Well, their story became a symbol
Okay.
of courage and resistance
Mm.
in the face of racial injustice.
And that inspired others.
Absolutely. It gave people hope.
Did their story have any specific impact on the broader civil rights movement?
Oh, absolutely. It helped galvanize support
Okay.
for the movement,
Mm.
and it put pressure on the federal
to
government.
take action on desegregation.
Exactly.
And it also highlighted the importance of education
Yeah, as a tool for social change.
by fighting for their right to an equal
They
education.
were fighting for future generations,
Right, they were breaking down
opening
barriers.
up doors for others,
And their legacy continues to inspire us
to fight for
in
equality.
all areas of life.
Absolutely. Their story remind us,
That change is possible.
even in the face of incredible obstacles.
And that's a message we need to hear today.
Now more than ever.
So what can we learn from the Norfolk 17?
Well, I think one of the biggest lessons is the importance of perseverance.
Right, they didn't give up,
Even when things got tough,
and they were willing to sacrifice
to put themselves on the line.
for what they believed in.
And I think it's also important to remember
Yeah,
the role of empathy and understanding.
okay.
It's easy to judge the past, but we need to try to understand the context.
Right, to see things from their perspective.
Exactly.
And to recognize that the fight for equality is ongoing.
It's a fight that we all need to be a part of.
So let's talk about that context a bit more.
Okay.
We've talked about Maverick resistance, but
Right.
what about the broader social and political landscape of Virginia at the time?
Well, it was a time of deep racial division.
Okay.
Segregation was the law of the land, and racism was deeply ingrained in society.
And that racism manifested itself.
In countless ways, in the taunts and slurs they endured,
Right.
in the denial of basic rights and opportunities,
They were treated as second-class citizens,
simply because of the color of their skin,
and that system
was designed to keep them down.
So they were fighting against a lot more than just laws.
They were fighting against an entire system of oppression.
And politically.
It was a very complex time.
Okay.
You had the federal government pushing for desegregation.
Right, with Brown v. Board of Education.
Right, with Brown v. Board of Education. But you also had a lot of resistance from southern states.
And Virginia was at the forefront of that resistance.
Absolutely.
So the Norfolk 17, did they have any political support?
Well, they did have some support from national civil rights organizations.
Like the NAACP?
Right, and from some northern politicians.
What within Virginia?
They faced a lot of opposition.
From those who wanted to maintain segregation.
Exactly.
And then there's the role of the media.
Yeah, the media played a really interesting role.
How so?
Well, some media outlets,
Okay.
especially the North, they were sympathetic to the Norfolk 17.
Okay.
They highlighted the injustices, and they helped raise awareness.
So they were giving a voice to the voiceless.
In a way, yes.
But not all media coverage was positive.
Unfortunately, no.
What were some of the negative portrayals?
Well, some southern newspapers,
Okay.
they demonized the students. They called them troublemakers.
Wow.
They tried to discredit them.
It's amazing how the media can be used
To shape public opinion.
for better or for worse.
Exactly.
But the Norfolk 17, they didn't let that silence them.
No, they continued to speak out.
And they helped change the media landscape.
By forcing them to confront their own biases.
It's incredible how much impact they had.
Yeah, 17 spins.
They changed the course of history.
They did, and their story continues to inspire us today.
It really is remarkable how a small group of students had such a profound impact on the media and really on society as a whole.
Yeah, their courage forced people to confront the reality of segregation.
And to see the humanity of these black students.
Or we're just trying to get an education.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into their story, I'm curious about how their legacy has been preserved. Like how have we honored them over the years?
Well, there have been a number of efforts.
Okay.
In 2008, a historical marker was erected near Norview High School
Okay.
to commemorate the 50th anniversary.
Of their actions.
Right.
And I believe Old Dominion University
Yes, they awarded honorary degrees
to the surviving members.
in 2009.
That's fantastic. It's so important to recognize their contributions.
It is, and to keep their story alive.
And there have been books and documentaries as well.
Yes, several.
Which is great because it allows future generations
To learn from their experiences.
and many of the surviving members.
They've continued to share their stories.
Wow, even all these years later.
Yeah, they're committed to keeping this history alive.
It's really inspiring.
It is.
And it makes me think about the lessons we can learn from them. What can their story teach us today?
Well, I think one of the biggest lessons is the importance of perseverance.
Right. They never gave up.
Even when faced with so much opposition,
And they were willing to sacrifice
to put themselves at risk.
for the greater good.
And I think their story also highlights the importance of empathy.
Okay.
To try to understand the historical context.
Right. To see things from their perspective. And to recognize that the fight for equality.
It's an ongoing struggle.
It is. And it's a fight that requires all of us.
To participate.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay?
What's one question or idea that you hope they'll take away from this?
I would ask them to consider how they can honor the legacy of the Norfolk 17,
Okay.
not just through remembrance, but through action.
So what can we do in our own lives to continue their fight for equality?
Exactly.
That's a powerful question.
It is.
And one that I hope our listeners will really reflect on.
Me too.
The Norfolk 17, they showed us what's possible when we stand up for what's
They
right.
did.
And they left a legacy that continues to inspire us today.
Absolutely.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into their story.
It's been a pleasure.